move right along to Carrie. Carrie Clark. You should know that from your emails. I did that the other night too. And Jane Helmstead will be evaluating Carrie. Jane, could you please tell us her objectives?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Toastmaster. Okay, objectives for Carrie. Select an appropriate outline which allows listeners to easily follow and understand your speech. Make your message clear with supporting material directly contributing to that message. Use appropriate transitions when moving from one idea to another. Create a strong opening and conclusion. And you have 5 to 7 minutes in which to meet those objectives.
What project number is that one?
This is project number 2 from the Competent Communication Manual.
Thank you. Carrie's speech is entitled How to Give an Awful Speech. Please help me welcome Carrie. Oh, it is.
Trying to get that natural rhythm down.
Yeah.
Well, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests, as a new Toastmaster, I have found that I am constantly educating myself on giving the perfect speech. I've read many websites, books, listened to podcasts, as well as skillful speakers communicate so clearly and eloquently that I have despaired of ever meeting that mastery level. At last week's Toastmasters meeting, I listened to many wonderful speeches as I've done week by week since I first came. However, Matt Lynn's speech really made me think over this past week. His delivery, his mastery, and his passion of every skill that had been suggested to me as a grow when I gave my icebreaker speech was inspiring. I left the meeting feeling so hopeful with a renewed sense of purpose. I went home right away and excitedly went home to work on my next speech. As the week wore on, and I thought more about Matt's speech, my thoughts began to change slightly. While I was still in awe of the speech, I began thinking about the growth that Sorouch had given Matt, and honestly, what I would have done differently. For example, I think I would have definitely stayed away from the British accent. As he intoned the words of Derek Redmond, all I could think was, wow, is he going to butcher some Shakespeare next? And Matt's speech made me realize a very important lesson, that no matter how magnificent the delivery, no matter how enthralling the topic, there is no such thing as the perfect speech. Now, being the perfectionist that I am, I realize that quite the opposite is true, though. There is such a thing as a truly awful speech. So, if you, like I, desire perfection, this is definitely the way to go. And here are some tips to guide you along your way. The basis of any speech, good or bad, is the topic. In a good speech, your topic is well organized, and while maybe not a subject that every single member of your audience will find enthralling, especially in a group as diverse as this one, the listener can state at the end of the speech was about 3 ways not to be a Jeff from Burger King by exercising power, as Mark said at last week's meeting. Now, in a dreadful speech, your audience is left scratching their heads as to what the heck you were just talking about for the last 5 to 7 minutes. Now, this is very easy to accomplish and actually requires very little time and very little effort. By far, the most effective method is what I like to call the Mad Lib approach. With this approach, any sets of information are fair game to easily confuse your audience. Now, for you engineers in the crowd, I have a formula for you. The minuteness of the link between the subjects contained within your topic directly equals how confounded your audience will be at the end. So, for example, you can pull the titles of 3 random newspaper articles that you have not read and base your speech on that. For example, how Al Franken didn't destroy the democracy after all, but how it did affect the quick guilty plea in the Barefoot case in the Bahamas. In conclusion, this directly relates to how Mel Gibson should no longer be allowed to produce, direct, or act in films due to recent footage that was recently discovered. Your audience will be left wondering what they have so obviously missed. And voila, you have a truly awful topic. Now, almost as important as the topic is the delivery. Frankly, I do not see shyness or awkwardness as an indicator of an awful speech. It simply means that you're human. Rudeness, however, does make for an awful speech. Remember when your first grade teacher told you that courtesy counts? This is the time to remember that this is the same person who told you not to eat the paste. Belittle your audience with transitions, such as, "It doesn't take a barrel full of monkeys with PhDs to see that," or, "I'm sure that even people with limited viewpoints such as your own would agree." If a question and answer section is provided, this step is especially crucial. In the days before my final presentation in my capstone class, I developed croup. Slept deprivation due to coughing, 13 straight hours of putting my 45-minute presentation into PowerPoint so the class could read aloud because I had lost my voice and feared it would not return in time for the presentation, as well as heavy medication made for an awful delivery. By the time the presentation arrived, I did regain my voice, but the medication had loosened my tongue. When one of my classmates asked a question, I looked him in the eye and said, "Seriously? That's your question?" He nodded, and I said, "Really, that's the best you can come up with?" He nodded, I sighed loudly, and answered the question. I also ended someone's sidebar conversation by simply telling them to put on their big boy pants and shut it. Statements like these, as well as profanity, also wonderfully make for an awful delivery. So as you can see, an awful speech is the perfectionist's only option when it comes to delivering the perfect speech. When your speech can befuddle, belittle, and baffle an audience, you have truly achieved your goal of perfection. With steps as simple as these, even a novice speaker with the sense that God gave a billy goat wearing lederhosen can accomplish the impossible, the perfect speech, even if it is perfectly awful.